Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Easter to all. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Thank you so much for joining us today for this press conference where we bring you further updates as it relates to the continuing state of emergency as we deal with the COVID-19 situation. With me this afternoon for this press conference, I have Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell. Also in the room here is the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Edwin Martin. On the sister island of Carriacou, we have our Health Minister, Honorable Nicholas Steele, and our COVID-19 Response Coordinator, Dr. George Mitchell. This afternoon, we start with an opening statement from Prime Minister Mitchell, and then we'll go over to Carriacou for an update from Minister Steele.
Thank you, Philo. Good afternoon, fellow Grenadians, Carriacouians, Pidgemontnicans, all. I take this opportunity to wish all of you a happy Easter. I know there's certainly a different Easter than any one of you, no matter how young or old you are. This is certainly a unique Easter. So although we could not engage in our traditional norms this Easter weekend, I trust that you took time to appreciate the true meaning of Easter and the significance of the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Now more than ever, we get to choose light over darkness and life over death. We are in the final week of the mandatory 24 hours curfew. This has been a steep learning curve for all of us along the way as we face this unprecedented global crisis. We ask all of you, sisters and brothers, for your continued patience in this time of restricted movements, as we must allow the healthcare professionals to pursue broad-based testing in keeping with scientific modeling to ascertain the degree to which COVID-19 is present in our country. It is simply to ensure that all persons who are potentially exposed to the virus are tested. The Ministry of Health, as the Press Secretary indicated, will give further elaboration on this. But based on the results of all the testing we've done so far, there is still no indication there has been any widespread community spread of the virus. This, sisters and brothers, you would agree, is excellent news. But we cannot afford to let our guard down just yet. We must maintain the vigilance we have exhibited in recent weeks. And you, the citizens, should continue to practice physical and social distancing and the recommended cough and sneezing techniques. Given our overall status as it relates to the presence of COVID-19 in our country, we are seriously considering further easement of the curfew as of next week. That is after Monday, April 20th. Including the allocation of additional shopping days and provisions for farmers and fishermen, who, as you know, are critical in the food supply chain. An announcement on that will be made when we have fully examined the health implications as outlined by our medical experts. Of course, the further easing of our lockdown measures will be highly contingent on your ability as citizens to comply with the regulations put in place to safeguard our public health. In the meantime, however, we continue to make operational changes as they become necessary to ensure that all our citizens are able to have basic supplies for daily living. This week, we have allocated, therefore, 3 days for shopping: Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This, we hope, will ease the congestion we're still seeing at major supermarkets. And we clearly are concerned about that aspect, because the intention is to protect our citizens and to prevent any community spread. And therefore, any initiative that is taken that keeps people bundled up in large groups certainly goes against the intended purpose of all the regulations that we have put in place. Let me say here, therefore, that your actions, particularly on shopping days, will play a significant role in helping to curb any potential spread of the virus in our community. In preparing for the shopping days, suppliers will begin distributing goods across the island from tomorrow, Tuesday 14th, until Thursday the 16th. Therefore, all village shops, grocery stores, and supermarkets will have an opportunity over the next few days to adequately replenish the stock to better serve you, the people. There is no need for panic buying and no need for large crowds and long lines. There is sufficient time and supply for everyone to secure basic supplies for the families. On the same days that shops and supermarkets are open, farmers and fishermen are also allowed to market their produce, and I believe that's a significant change from what we had before. We have heard the cry of both sides of that equation. The sister isles of Carriacou and Petite Martinique will have a shopping day tomorrow, Tuesday 14, and from Thursday this week, all the islands, all parts of our island, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, will have the same shopping days going forward. I think it's important to me to make the point to our brothers and sisters in Petite Martinique, and I received a report only just a few minutes ago from the Minister of Health, who had just visited Petite Martinique and indicated that the people of Petite Martinique, while they do have some inconveniences like every part of this country, no one has indicated that they have any serious starvation problems in Petite Martinique, and therefore there is no need for anyone to ask anybody to break the fundamental norms that we have established as a country to protect all the citizens of Petite Martinique. And I therefore want to congratulate the people of Petite Martinique and Carriacou for listening to the heirs of the government and no one else. By now, most of you should have heard my announcement of the 2 banking days that will be provided on Thursday and Friday this week from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I want to commend the Bankers Association for their ready agreement to partner with government in ensuring that these services are made available to the public. Because on short notice, I called a meeting with the Bankers Association, and they readily agreed to do what is necessary within the protocol established to provide the services to length and breadth of our country and to help ease the problems that people are noticing as far as the lack of availability of cash. I think it's also important to note that the bankers have agreed to look at very soon, hopefully next week, to open our everyday. The specific time of operation on those days going forward will be announced. So I expect they have in fact indicated this, but it has to be worked out with our health ministry and the commissioner of police and others. All other businesses providing financial services to the population, including credit unions, MoneyGram and Western Union, are permitted to operate during the same hours as banks on Thursdays and Thursday and Friday of this week. Additionally, all gas stations will be open from 6 a.m. to noon on Wednesday and Friday this week. But essential workers and employees of other businesses will be allowed to operate this week. For all services at grocery stores, supermarkets, and financial institutions, government kindly encourages owners and operators to make special provision for essential and frontline workers. We continue to be exceedingly grateful for these workers' sacrifices, especially our healthcare professionals and our Royal Grenada Police Force. Sisters and brothers, in all that you do, I urge you to always remember that social and physical distancing is key. Do not endanger your health by standing too close to any other person. And do not be afraid to request the same of persons who are in your presence. Also, be sure to wear a mask or some other facial covering whenever you are out in public. I'm here today with one. This is to protect all of us, to protect our country. And the final point I need to raise, to indicate Tuesday this week, the Finance Committee of Parliament will be meeting via the technology that we use. That's the virtual meeting of that cabinet has been having for the last few weeks. And that is primarily to discuss, to pass, which is the laws of the land indicate the fiscal stimulus package that we in fact indicated. It also we have to look at the appropriation anytime you are supposed to be spending additional monies other than that was allocated during a budget period, then you must go to Finance Committee for that support, legal support, to proceed to spend, and we expect to be paying those workers that we promised by late next week or early the following week. We must pass this. We also would have to look at some other laws that give effect to these payments that must be done at the Parliament, and the Parliament will therefore meet on Friday of next week. It's important to note and I heard some comments being made by some uninformed persons that we may be breaking some rule by not going to Parliament. This government always stood by fundamental rules, and we have not broken any rules. Those who read and read properly would know that we are following every aspect that we have to. Any government spending outside of what is stated on the budget period, that was identified from vote to vote, that could be done by the contingency fund which was established by Parliament. And contingency is what it means. In case you have emergencies, you can spend. It's the only reason we have to go to Parliament is because the amount we have to spend for the next 3 months, in addition to what the budget has, is more than what the contingency fund has in it right now. That's the fundamental reason we have to go. So we will be doing so on Friday, and then also we'll have the official emergency legislation passed in Parliament, so it would not be having to, the governor then have to declare this every week, every 2 weeks, whatever the situation arises. So there will be a parliamentary approval for the Emergency Powers Legislation Act, which of course runs out in three months. So it will be a maximum of 3 months if we have to do it. God forbid, we hope we won't have to do it. So, friends, I look forward to your comments and questions. I know the Minister of Health will be giving an update on the health situation as we see it in our country. But just want to thank you again for the cooperation that we noticed and the understanding that you've had, that I've seen as I drive around the country. An unmarked vehicle, some of you don't know that I'm passing, I see there is general acceptance of what we are doing throughout the length and breadth of the country. So I want to thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for all of the details you have provided there for the nation. We now go over to the sister island of Carriacou, where Honorable Health Minister Nicholas Steele journeyed today. He also visited Petit Martinique, as the Prime Minister would have indicated. Minister Steele, can we have an update from the sister islands?
Commissioner of Police, all of you in the room, and all of our viewers and listeners. I am truly fortunate in these difficult times to be in beautiful Carriacou, having just come back from even more beautiful Petit Martinique. Met with a group of our citizens in Petit Martinique to discuss all of their issues. They aren't having any challenges. They are doing their time just like the rest of us, making sacrifices just like the rest of us, have arranged their logistics with respect to getting food just like the rest of us, and actually gave me a personal message for the Prime Minister to assure him that all of these logistical arrangements involve only the state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. They have made arrangements for their boats to come down to Grenada to get the stocks that they need, and are quite happy with that arrangement. In fact, looking forward to their small and precious Petit Martinique remaining COVID-free. And I have every intention of being totally compliant with that. I'm here in Carriacou now, looking forward to meeting some of the medical team this afternoon and tomorrow. And I can say that Carriacou is completely on lockdown. Apart from being greeted by the representative here and a small amount of her team, I have not seen a single person on the street in all of Carriacou. They are adhering completely in their houses. I'm assuming looking at this address right now, and looking forward to their shopping day tomorrow. They have all done their time. Their last shopping day here was Wednesday, and have taken and made the sacrifice, like the rest of us, to be in for 5 days and more since Wednesday, in order to ensure that if there is any slight possibility of community spread in Carriacou, that in them staying home since last week, Wednesday to tomorrow, they would have done everything possible to make sure that it doesn't continue. So while I'm here too, I want to also take this opportunity to thank the Coast Guard and Royal Grenada Police Force who have assisted logistically in us getting from Carriacou to Petit Martinique, given us tremendous support over there to get back and forth. And I'm looking forward to meeting Dr. Davis, Nurse Williams, and Dr. Bethel and the team up here this afternoon and or tomorrow, time permitting, so that we can see firsthand what's going on up here and give the support. We came up with some additional supplies for them, PPEs and goggles, etc. And also looking forward, Dr. Mitchell and myself, to witnessing the shopping day tomorrow with all expectation that the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique will do us proud in their adherence of it, and making sure that they do their part in making that to ensure that this beautiful country of ours remains COVID free as best as possible, and we do all our what is necessary. So without saying more, I would hand over to Dr. Mitchell, I guess, but just simply to say that Carriacou and Petit Martinique are well, are healthy, are stocked. They have their challenges like the rest of us, but they are prepared as one nation to go through it together, because they recognize, like all of us, that we are all in this together.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele. I think you indicated that Dr. Mitchell also had an update for us, so we'll take that before we open the floor for questions. Dr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Philo, and good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to our Prime Minister and COP. Good afternoon to all our listeners out there, and may I extend a happy Easter to everyone as well. I must say that I am extremely proud to be in Carriacou. I have not been up here for ages. I hope no one in Carriacou and Petit Martinique beats me up, but it's really, really good to be back. And I'm even more proud of the way that our fellow Carriacouians have actually heeded the call to maintain the social distancing and to stay at home. It has been extremely, extremely impressive. As Minister Steele said, we have seen virtually no one on the street. So I feel confident that Carriacou and Petit Martiniquans are actually safe. I feel very, very free here. I must say I feel honored to be here as well. And I just want to congratulate our healthcare professionals, Dr. Davis, who I have been in touch with today, and I met with Nurse Williams personally today as well. They are doing what needs to be done in the circumstance. I think they understand what it takes to keep Carriacou and Petit Martinique free. We intend to meet with them further and the rest of the staff to ensure that all of the protocols are completely understood, all of the mechanisms are completely understood. At this stage, importantly, we want to ensure that we can scale up our testing to make sure that if by chance anyone has fallen through the crack, that we can find out. I had a meeting today with the rest of the team from the Ministry of Health, and we have devised a plan to ensure that we can scale up our testing capacity so that just in case anyone fell through the crack, that we can catch them and ensure that our country is free from COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell. So we've had updates from the Prime Minister, the Health Minister, and our COVID response coordinator. Now we'll open the floor to take questions from members of the media who have joined us on this press briefing via our technology. Before we take questions, however, I just want to clarify that gas stations will be open 6 a.m. to noon, Wednesday and Friday, for essential workers and employees of other businesses that are allowed to operate this week. And Prime Minister would have indicated what those additional businesses are. And further, the Royal Grenada Police Force will host a press conference tomorrow morning where they will further drill down into the details of this new arrangements that are being made. So do we have any questions from the floor yet? Members of the media, to indicate that you have a question, please wave your hand in the chat, and this will be observed so we can know who is next in queue. Are we ready with questions? Mikey, we have a question from you. You have first off this afternoon. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to say hello and welcome to everyone viewing this live press conference. It's important for us to have these engagements so that at least we are all understanding of what the plans are for our country so that there is no ambiguity and so on. So I appreciate that opportunity to be here today. Now, my first question goes out to the health officials. I know that in the last press conference that we had, we spoke of the persons who have been tested positive for COVID-19 and them being retested. So at least we know whether or not they still have the COVID-19. Where are we with that?
Minister Steele or Dr. Mitchell, will either of you take that question?
Yes. Let me say that yes, there will be a retesting of the individuals. The protocol is after the individuals stop exhibiting symptoms and after a certain time period, between 7 and 14 days, you would then test them. The same test that would have been given to them for them to have produced a positive result needs to be done twice in a 24-hour period. And if we get 2 negative results twice in 24 hours, then we can determine them to be have recovered from COVID-19. So we await that. They remain in our thoughts and prayers. Some of them are very much close to fully recovered. Out of an abundance of caution, we are giving them that additional time, but we'll be testing them all twice within the 24 period as they get closer and closer to that time.
Mikey, do you have another question before we go to another reporter?
Yes, I do have another question for now. The Prime Minister spoke of giving the fishermen and farmers the opportunity to ply their trade out, in his words, to market. But in the cases of fishermen, and in some instances farmers as well, would need to go get the fish or would need to go to the gardens and so on. So are we giving them an additional day or so in order for them to get their fish, get their product, so that they would have it available for those days that is designated for them?
Mikey, I think it's a very, very appropriate question. And the Commissioner is one who affect the decisions that we made and how it is done. So, Commissioner?
Thank you, Prime Minister, and afford me the opportunity to also say good morning to all persons tuned in and listening to this brief. Definitely, that will be the approach. We have to open up, and as indicated by Prime Minister, you will find effective this week, Thursday and Friday and Saturday, on the same as shopping days, we will afford farmers and fishermen the opportunity to ply their trade. The details of this, we will drill down to it in our press brief starting tomorrow, but a lot of consideration has been given, and already we have on the table the potential of having farmers market at different parishes. So we already started the consideration on how this is going to roll out for how they will deliver their produce. And of course time will be given to them as well, because they need to get into the lands to access the produce in order that they can turn their trade to the consumers.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Next up, we have Junior George.
Well, clearly we have not addressed this specifically, but Junior, first of all, let me say good afternoon to you and to all our brothers and sisters in the diaspora in New York and other parts of our world. Clearly, I think visas are given sometimes at a specific time, as you indicated. This is not normal time. I can only assume that the kind of rule that is applied when one overstays his rule would not be applied rigidly as was done normally, simply because COVID-19 forced borders to be closed. And therefore, until we decide to open borders, we can't just open it for a selected group of persons unless some serious procedural issues are taken care of in doing so. So I cannot tell you, Junior, that we will be able to handle this specifically at this particular time. I think we'll have to work with the U.S. authorities to ensure these persons, for the time being, will not be penalized for having overstayed, not because they wanted to overstay, because circumstances forced them to be where they are. I think that should be the issue.
Junior, before you go to your second question, just for the benefit of our listeners who did not hear the audio on your question, I've received a number of messages. Junior was basically asking if any provisions were being made for persons who have traveled to the United States, their visas may be expiring and they need to return home. So this is the response that you would have just heard from Prime Minister. That question would have come from Junior George. Junior, you may proceed with your second question.
My second question is, I think the Prime Minister made mention of it earlier as it relates to the situation in St. Vincent and folks in Petit Martinique. I just wanted to get a feedback. I just wanted the Prime Minister to reiterate on that a bit, because I was a bit unclear as to what is the position and what is the message that is being sent out there to the folks in Petit Martinique. And also, a situation like that, I'm thinking because of Caribbean diplomacy, why couldn't something like that be handled between Grenada and St. Vincent with a phone call?
George, I think your question would be better placed to the other party, because the other party was the one who made an announcement. First of all, the country has made a decision, the nation has made a decision to protect itself. We've closed our borders. That means we close it for everybody. So there is no exception to say we open it for St. Vincent, we open it for Grenadines, or we open it for Trinidad, or we open it for Dominica. It's closed for everybody. So every serious leader have to respect the decision of the government of another country with respect to his own citizen, not with respect to their citizen, to our own citizen. And therefore, the people of Petit Martinique have indicated, and the Minister of Health confirmed a short while ago, that they are fully behind the decision of the government of Grenada, not any other leader, and that they are adhering to a fundamental rule of the closing of borders, and they are not accepting the offer of anyone to break the fundamental laws of this land. So that's the situation. It's unfortunate, as you said, that statement will come from anyone at this stage to attempt to encourage citizens of another country. I will never attempt to encourage citizens of any country to break the laws of their country. Whatever the laws, whether it's a temporary law or permanent one, because I think we have to respect each other. So that would be my position, Julian, and I hope and pray that that situation will not arise again in the future.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Before we take the other person, Sherry, I think I see your hand up there. Again, we seem to have had some technical difficulties, and quite a few of our viewers, listeners, did not hear Junior's question. Junior's question pertained to statements that were made this week by the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, who essentially extended an invitation to the residents of Carriacou and Petit Martinique to come over to the Grenadine Islands if they needed food or gas. And responding to that statement, the Prime Minister indicated that the borders of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique remained closed, and he urged residents to comply, and also indicated that there is no shortage of food. And as heard here earlier this afternoon, provisions are being made to ensure that supplies get to the Sister Islands. So that's just for the persons who did not hear the question posed by Junior. Sherry Ann, you're next.
Good afternoon. I have two questions. The first one is for either Dr. George Mitchell or Honorable Nicholas Steele. It comes from the general public, though. They'd like to know how satisfied or how successful will you say contact tracing has been thus far? Contact tracing, sorry.
Thank you, Sherian. Thank you, Sherian, very much. We are confident at the ministry that our team has done an exceedingly good job. Dr. Sean Charles, our epidemiologist, supported by our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Francis Martin, and the team at the district level have done what we consider to be an excellent job. I want to reiterate, an excellent job. Let's not forget that Dr. Sean Charles is one of our leading epidemiologists in the sub-region, hailed by CARFA for his seminal work in the past, and he has been leading this charge. And so we are really, really, really pleased with what has happened thus far. We think and we are confident that all our contact tracing have been successfully done, and we have tested all of those persons who were remotely or directly in contact with positive cases. And those are the cases that came out negative in our last press conference. So in this respect, we want to say kudos to them, and we think that they're doing a fabulous job. I must add, though, that, Sherian, that does not give us any comfort in going forward. We, based on what we know about the virus, are not going to rest for a minute to think that we have covered all our bases. We want to be on the side of caution. We want to make sure that persons continue to observe the social distancing call. We want to make sure that persons wear their face masks, because we are dealing with a virus that is dubious, to say the least. Very, very difficult. We have seen what it has done to other developed healthcare systems and other professionals in developed countries that seemingly did not take the requisite precautions and found themselves in the positions that they have found themselves. So we are not taking any chances. And that is the reason why, despite our current situation, we are going to scale up our testing, and we are going to try and ensure as much as possible that when we decide to open up eventually, that we have uncovered or covered every single aspect based on the science and based on what we know that we should do in this current circumstance.
My next question is in two parts. It's to Prime Minister Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell, just for clarity, in terms of the port, there are people asking about clearance of private stuff in terms of barrels with food stuff and so that came. Can you shed some light on that aspect of the operations? And part two, in recent days, there will be much talk about China. Can you just give us an update on the students that we have in China? Thank you. And my final question.
No, as far as I know, the port is operating based on the normal operations with respect to things that come in the country. Commissioner may wish to clarify if there's any specific indication of any exceptions.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Yes, indeed, the port continues to operate in terms of clearing all essential goods, foodstuff and supplies that we need to supply the different grocery stores and supermarkets. Consistent with remarks that Prime Minister has just made with respect to a little bit of easement taking place, commencing Wednesday and Thursday of this week, you will start seeing another batch, and that is the non-essential containers on the port will now start to be cleared. Last of which is to look at the issues of the barrels, and of course that consideration is because it brings on board with it the amassing of large crowds of persons, which at this time we need to be careful with. However, that is on consideration because we do understand critically that a lot of barrels and smaller parcels on the port at the moment are for individuals who need those supplies. Once we get rid of the non-essential containers to the hardware, we can then look at the model of being able to accommodate in a controlled way the persons that need to clear barrels as well. So I can see in the not too distant future it will be something that will be taken on board, but we need to take it step by step. We appeal for patience and consideration as we do this in a very sensible, logical and responsible way.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think Minister Steele, you wanted to add something to the conversation here?
But the Commissioner summed it up admirably in that it has to be systematic. The same reason that we step by step closed off, we have to be cautious as we reopen. I have every intention, or we all have every intention of making sure that all goods get to their consignees, but we have to do it methodically and make sure that in doing so we don't put people at undue risk.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele. Sherry, I know you said you had a third question for the Commissioner, but let's take a couple of this and then we can come back to you because we have quite a few persons who are waiting in line. We have a question here from Linda Straker, who is saying that mention was made of farmers. Will farmers also include nutmeg and cocoa farmers? Will they be allowed to sell to their respective associations?
In a general sense, we are allowing farmers to have access to their farms, and we said it will be similar to the period of time that is afforded to the business community and on shopping days. So the extended hours now go, whereas they were restricted previously. The latest time that was given was up to 6 to 12 for poultry farmers. We now have an entire day to farmers that goes up to 5 in the afternoon. And if you give farmers, of course, farmers can tend to the broad ambit of their functions and responsibility. We have not yet considered the actual delivery of nutmegs, of course, to entities, but we understand, and there are issues where if nutmegs are not handled in a particular manner, they can spoil. So I know that the COVID-19 Cabinet Subcommittee will be looking at that and coming up with a decision in the not too distant future. It is clear that we are moving in that direction, so I will not be unduly concerned about the possibility of it not happening.
Our next question will come from Roel Patterson. Roel, go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon to all of us, please. Are you hearing me? Yeah. Happy to all.
Thank you.
Dr. Mitchell, I must be plausible in terms of your previous presentation at the last press conference in terms of securing the people of Caracom, Pittsburgh, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, based on the fact that, of course, our borders are locked down. Having said that, Dr. Mitchell, are you saying that, of course, we are now closer towards the installation of port and customs facility in Pittsburgh? And secondly, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a regional heads of government conference tomorrow, please, good. And would you be using that opportunity to improve and, of course, let regional governments know the importance of course, respecting each other's border in the wake of COVID-19?
Well, clearly I think this is something that we all should be aware of, respecting each other's borders. I think this is clearly fundamental. The issue of the meeting there's no meeting of heads as such directly. Tomorrow's a meeting with the managing director, the head of the International Monetary Fund. They will be giving a briefing to heads relative to the support that the IMF intend to give to the region. There's some criteria for getting those support, and I can assure you that Grenada is certainly at the top of the list because of how we've in fact managed our country in the last several years. So we should be getting this. So there's no need to raise that issue at that time with the International Monetary Fund managing director's presence. That sort of issue could be raised on a one-on-one basis between leaders or at heads of government of CARICOM when we do meet. But it's something that I think has raised the eyebrows of a lot of people. So it would not be swept under the carpet.
Walter, you have another question?
Yes, I do. I do have the next question for the Prime Minister, and of course I have two for the medical department. Dr. Mitchell, in terms of the safety net programs, could you tell us exactly what sort of strain that COVID-19 is putting on it, the mere fact that it was not treated for, and against the backdrop of the fact that in 6 weeks' time, we are going to be, of course, entering into the hurricane season, and then, of course, we know the potential of hurricanes based on 19 Janet, Ivan, and, of course, Emma.
We certainly know that the COVID-19 would have created further burden on the marginalized in the country. So we expect that some people that may not have qualified for needy assistance support will certainly be qualifying for it now. So we'll have to make additional resources available to aid the additional demands for support, and that package specifically will be detailed, we'll discuss at Cabinet and Finance Committee tomorrow, and would be laid to the public on Friday next week at the Parliament, details of the package and what would be available for what sector of the society. That will be detailed at that particular time. But we do expect to be able to do additional support for some of our people in our country at this time. This has put an enormous amount of pressure on the government coffers. But we are, with the support of the people of the country, we will meet the fundamental challenges that we face at this time.
Well, seeing that you are a newcomer to our press conferences, I'll allow you just one more because we need to give the other journalist on the call an opportunity.
Just to Dr. George Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell, we understand that, of course, some 91 persons from South Korea who tested positive, they came tested negative, and now, of course, they are now seeing that they are back as positive. What are some of the frightening examples and scenarios out of these cases for us here in this country, for those who are now being affected, the general public, and do you see any further challenges for people who are asymptomatic?
Raul, thank you for this question. We have seen a report coming from South Korea as well, and just like we've seen many reports coming from different countries about the behavior of the virus. Having said that, this is why we are sounding the clarion call that we need to continue to be extremely careful. We need to validate that kind of information going forward to make sure that this is exactly what is happening. And this is why we're not sort of like sitting on our laurels, so to speak, where the behavior of the virus is concerned, and that we are taking as much precautions as we can and listening to the science, ensuring that, as I said before, make sure that we understand the behavior of the science and not open up too quickly in any case, so that we don't make mistakes going forward. So we are listening, we are keeping our eyes open. We are keeping abreast of the science to ensure that we don't fall into the traps of any countries or any population going forward. So we are keeping abreast of the what is being reported out there, and we will ensure that going forward, specifically, that we do enough testing to speak directly to what you're asking about asymptomatic persons. That is why we are increasing our testing capacity. That's why we are widening the net of persons that we test, so that we're not caught with our pants down.
The Prime Minister would like to add a comment to this particular question. Dr. Mitchell, go ahead.
Well, I think the question is a very relevant one in the context of what's taking place. I think it is clear that this virus is baffling scientists all over the world. What we are learning is that most of the developed countries' scientific institutions have in fact put most of the work on the back burner, and everyone is going after COVID-19 because this virus is behaving so differently from any other virus the world has seen. And it is, we don't know yet, Ron, the complete behavior of this virus. So a lot of work is being done, and I'm pretty sure, as the world has always been able to solve the fundamental health and other problems, that it will find the understand and be able to control the behavior of that virus, and that they will be coming up with some form of treatment that would in fact protect us. But one thing that was said by one of the leading health experts and supported by most around the world is that our behavior pattern of socializing would have changed almost certainly. I don't think, as they have said, that you'll see almost the regularity of handshaking again, and people would be a lot more careful. It's well known. I know that for a fact, because I know some of my friends years now. They say they stop shaking hands. People had stopped shaking hands a long time. Well, this virus, I think, will put an end. We have to find other ways of socializing with each other. It's clear. So that's why I think the question, Raul, is so important, because the virus has raised some fundamental issues about the way we operate as individuals, in this world.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Up next, we have Chrislyn Lashington. Chrislyn, go ahead. Chrislyn, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone. Chrislyn Lashington from Power FM. It's definitely commendable that we're now able to test for COVID-19 in Grenada. And I also noticed recently that we received test kits as well as antibody test kits from Venezuela. Are the antibody test kits specific for COVID-19? Because I noticed that the name was SARS-CoV-2. And are you able to say how many we received? And also looking forward, because I do believe that the team's response has been great so far, will we be looking to test for antibodies in the next phase following quarantine as a way to get a more realistic idea as to how many persons were infected and possibly immune to COVID-19 in Grenada, whether it is that we do it among healthcare workers or perhaps a random sample of the population?
Thank you.
George, Dr. George.
A series of questions.
Dr. Mitchell.
So I am not sure exactly what I will be answering to, but I'll give the whole gamut of what we're doing here and what does the rapid test signifies. Yes, we received over 3,000, and I want to repeat, 3,000 rapid test kits. And those test kits are indeed specific for COVID-19. So this is a tremendous feat, and we can't but thank the government and people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and I think I got that right. We also received some immunoassays and some other materials from them that would allow us to do more testing, more PCR testing. Having said that, the way we're going to use this, the test, is being strategized by our medical team as we speak. There was a meeting this morning, and we're going to be deploying several strategies to ensure that we maximize the testing among the population. So yes, we will be doing random testing. We will be testing persons who show up at our clinics. We'll be doing testing of persons who call our hotline. In other words, we have basically mapped out a plan that would allow the Ministry of Health to get a very, very, very good picture of what is happening on the ground. So this is basically what we are strategizing to do going forward, so that we can know what and how many, if at all, percentage of the population was exposed to the virus. I hope I answered your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell. The Prime Minister also wanted to weigh in on this. Prime Minister?
I really want to comment before George commented. Just to say that he didn't see me picking up a box from an aircraft. That's all I wanted to see more than anything else. So George explained what he got. I don't know what he got, but I was just going to say that as a prelude to George answering the question. Pull the box.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Chrislyn, you have a second question that you'd like to pose to the panel?
Yes, I also wanted to thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell, both Dr. Mitchells, but specifically Dr. George Mitchell. I really wanted to focus a little bit more on the antibody testing, because I know there's been a lot of conversation globally about antibody testing rather than just the PCR testing to see who has the antigen in their bodies, but more so people who may have been exposed. And there was a press release that came out from the GIS recently that specifically said that it was SARS-CoV-2 as the antibody testing. So I just wanted more details on that one. Also, a quick question for our Honorable Prime Minister. You mentioned that there is some easement coming up, and I'm sure a lot of people are very happy to hear that. But are there any specific regulations for persons within the transportation sector? Like, are the bus drivers able to go on the road during those days that you mentioned previously? Thank you.
The Prime Minister.
Dr. Mitchell, you proceed with the answer to the first part of the question, and then Prime Minister will take the second part after.
Okay. Chrislyn, yes, the test that we got is indeed antibody test for COVID-19. They are actually specific. I was just handed, I'm not sure if your viewers can actually see what's here. It's a very simple test that we have actually done among a few of us. And I can happily say that all of us tested negative for the virus. But yes, it's an antibody test for COVID-19, particularly easy and simple to use. And we do have over 3,000 of them that we will be using strategically that would give us an idea, if at all we had penetration of the virus among the population, we'll be able to pick that up. So I just wanted to reiterate that yes, it's an antibody test using a simple drop of blood from your finger or wherever else on your body to be able to do that test. It takes about less than a minute to do, and it is almost painless, to say the least.
Yes, Christine, and the answer to the issue of the transportation, as you are aware, transportation in general, whether it's transportation to and from Grenada and within Grenada, will really be the last cycle of action that would be taken. So one has to be very careful, because we are moving in the right direction. I think the fact that we've had no community spread based on all the tests that have been done so far, even with the contact that we've had with the persons that were positive among the population that they moved around, then most people, almost all, were proven negative. So I think we're moving in the right direction to go to the stage of transport. Clearly, if there are identified needs, the Commissioner has, through the Cabinet responsibility, the Commissioner can be asked to provide specific concession to a specific area. But to open transport in general would be a far more, would be a much more difficult thing at this point in time. So we're heading in the right direction, but we don't want to, we don't want to do anything too haphazardly, too quickly, that can take us back to where we were 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, and Christy, thank you for your contribution to this
Very, very good question.
Yes. Pleasant good afternoon to everybody. For the Prime Minister, I know you would have mentioned the situation with the Vincentian Prime Minister and the people of Carriacou and Peter Martinique. But my question to you, have you had a direct communication with the Vincentian Prime Minister himself to get some form of clarity? Clarity in the sense that, is it an act of goodwill, or is it just Mr. Gonzalez asking the citizens to disregard the regulations in place? So the question, have you had direct communication with the Vincentian Prime Minister?
Keisha, I want to correct one thing, point you made. I didn't speak to anybody. I didn't call anybody's name. I wanted to be very clear. If you listen to my speech, I say any leader who attempts to cause any all of a citizen to break the laws of the land is not behaving responsibly. So it would be, since I did not mention name and no one mentioned my name specifically, then I would not need to have any specific conversation with anybody. If they raise it with me, anybody raise it with me, then I will discuss it accordingly. But there was no need for me to have to call anybody at this time. There's no need. I hope you got my point, Keisha.
Thank you. I have 2 other quick questions. At this point in time, would you say that you're satisfied with the residents' response to the regulations thus far?
You're talking about response from the people, you mean? Right? I assume that you...
Yes.
No, so far, I think all people have behaved pretty responsibly. I mean, every now and then the Commissioner and his men act in certain circumstances. You will never get a perfect situation in any rule or law that you attempt to implement, even when it's in the best interest of all concerned. So, but I as Prime Minister and leader of this country, I must say that I think the country has certainly understood. I think what is significant about this is that people all have communication, they have television, they have radio, and they're seeing what is happening in big countries. I think if it was a case where we are saying something about what's happening in Grenada only, I think it might have been harder to swallow. But people watching, when they hear Prime Minister Boris Johnson as Prime Minister has gone down with COVID-19, when they hear the heir to the Queen, the throne in England, Prince Charles, gone down, the Prime Minister of Canada's wife, I think when you hear that, you have to take stock. Something would have to be wrong with you if you do not take stock, and something have to be wrong with any serious country or leader not to take stock and to do something about what is happening when you see what's taking place around the world, that virus that people seem up to now, as I said before, simply do not understand about its behavior and its origin and how we can solve and deal with it effectively for the future.
Prime Minister, just afford me the opportunity to weigh in a little bit on this question as well. I must take the opportunity to compliment the public for the cooperation they have given. I mean, our officers has been on the ground and responsible for enforcement to a large extent. And I have seen firsthand, particularly yesterday, where persons wait in lines for hours, 5-6 hours, and in some cases denied the opportunity to shop at that time. And even in the face of disappointment and adversity, we had cooperation. Yes, they were disappointed, but people cooperated. And by and large, people are complying because they understand the gravity of the situation. And they understand, in my mind, why is it they are required to do and expected to do what they have to do at this point in time. So I just afford me the opportunity to say thank you to the general public. We are not yet out the woods, and much more is expected of you. I just continue to appeal for your further cooperation, patience, and understanding.
I should just add, as the Commissioner raised this point, you know, I think we all agree that this is something none of us were prepared for. I think we all agreed. And the team, the COVID cabinet appointed team, working with the Commissioner of Police and all other interested parties who have been helping, made decisions with the best interests of protecting the country. And in a situation that we're working almost in a vacuum, you will never be perfect. And when we saw the result of some of the decisions we made, for example, the supermarket decision, we received comments from a wide cross-section of the public, from the smallest man on the ground, so to speak, to the highest person in the society with big business and so on, at different levels. At different levels, the same comment was made to us. You want to us not to congregate to stop the spread, but where you're doing the supermarket, implementing it will in fact cause us, because when people get desperate in lines for several hours, they want food and they might break your protocol to get it. So they came forward and we told them, do not afraid to speak to us, because we ourselves know that what some of the decisions we made may not have been optimal. So there we've been getting, and that's why today you're seeing some of the changes that we've made, and hopefully you'll see further changes as we move forward in the next week or so. I think I wanted to come to make that point because the Commissioner did refer to it specifically.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Keisha, you have one more question?
Yes, I do. Okay, so it's probably too early to get a definitive answer on what the daily life will be like in the upcoming weeks. But Mr. Prime Minister, has your cabinet started looking into exit strategies moving forward, for example, borders and, you know, the reopening of schools and probably some of the offices on island?
Yes, certainly we examine this. What we probably will do is get a task force to a broad cross-section of the country, the trade union, the business community. And so we have a protocol already with a social partnership, but add some other individuals to it, the church leadership, the churches, the non-governmental community, to look at exactly, we have started discussing it at all levels. But one thing that has come up already, and maybe I could afford to say it, and it's already happening, discussion is taking place in other countries. The whole point in this is to make sure that you do not have any imported COVID-19 cases in the country. So if there could be a methodology where persons wanting to visit our country and to be in a particular facility, whether it's a hotel or whatever, and they have done all the tests outside, they're doing the tests before they come to, and the airline has to verify that, or whatever facility is transporting them. And when they come here, they are in fact taking care, meeting people who already have been tested and are tested. If all these things will be done to protect the country, I see no reason why we shouldn't allow those persons to visit and to relax in our country. So these are some of the things that people are talking about it. In fact, the general feeling is maybe you know, there are some countries if you have to go to now, and years ago, You go to some countries, you must take a smallpox vaccination. There's some countries you take malaria shot and so on. It may mean in future, it might mean that before any one of us are allowed to travel to another country, we may have to have the certificate of tests for COVID-19. These are some of the things, the thoughts that are taking place already.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Also, Akisha, thank you very much for your questions. I think we do have a question from Callistra Faria. She has left the conversation. Are there any further questions? Mikey, I see your hand up. Okay, I'll allow you one more question. And Sherry, you'll be next.
Okay. Right. So I would like us to focus a bit because I do not want us to ignore the people that have this operation running. The police officers, nurses, essential workers, and the likes. I want to speak with specific reference to the police and the nurses since we have representatives on their behalf in this forum. They are working hard, and I'd like to know what mechanisms are in place to ensure that their well-being is taken care of while they work, their well-being and their family. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was at a supermarket and there was a police officer who were in the line, and he probably would have taken a break from what he was doing or probably heading to work because the comments that he was making was he is late and he's trying to get, and he did not receive any sort of recognition or preferential treatment so that he could have gone to do what he was supposed to do. So are there mechanisms that we're looking towards to ensure that they get to do their jobs, yes, one, and two, while they do so, that their well-being is taken care of and their families?
Thank you very much, Mikey, for that question, and thank you for generating some interest in the well-being of police officers and frontline workers in general, of those nurses and doctors as well. We have identified critically that the system we have been using in allowing all essential workers to access the same supermarket line is not working well for our frontline workers. Not only at the supermarket, but also at the gas pump. Today, this matter was discussed at the COVID-19 committee, and we have already addressed one of the supermarkets. And so going forward, we will have a dedicated day for shopping for police officers, nurses, and doctors, and we will do that at the parish level to ease that frustration by liaising with specific establishments to facilitate this. But more than this, we have significant contributions coming from Corporate Grenada to ensure that we are provided with what is needed. Only yesterday, Minister of Health handed over to me an additional 1,000 face masks for police officers. I got a call from the Bishop, Bishop Harvey, in terms of providing additional masks for police officers. We get an additional offer from Saul, offering to purchase a quantity of water. There are many other establishments. I can't even remember all. I think Grenada Bottling to come on board with water and Gatorade. There's so much. I probably need a separate press conference to do that. As we collect those supplies, we continue to distribute them to the police officers. The officers are indeed working hard, but certainly the interests are looked at in the best way possible, and we are looking to meet those needs as they arise. An adjustment in shopping will take place effective the next shopping period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Mikey, I'll stick you to one question here. I was just made aware that Nisha Paul was actually in line ahead of you. So Nisha, you may pose your question to the panel.
I just wanted a short comment on Commissioner. Yesterday I was listening to WFM, and a brother that does the morning program, he spent about almost 45 minutes pleading, Chief, take care of the police officer a little more for me. Take care of the police. He mentioned it, I thought it was for more than half an hour. Police officers work hard, they're working hard, they're suffering. So I just pass it on to the commissioner and tell them people are very concerned about the police officers and their welfare. So Mikey, your point that you're raising is extremely relevant indeed. We recognize the sacrifices being made by those officers. I see them as I drive around on the roadblocks, and I see how professionally they're handling their work. So I think we are in a position to do what we can do for them.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Nisha, I know I did say I was coming to you, but we have Health Minister on the line who would like to make a comment here. I'll just allow him to do that, and then you come to pose your question. Minister Steele, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Philomena. With respect to the health workers, I think first and foremost, what we wanted to make sure of is that they were protected as best as possible. We understand that there are threats here. This is a virus. And we see that even first world nations have not been able to protect their healthcare workers as best as the healthcare workers should be protected. I also want to say that I think it's almost divine intervention that this is the International Year of Nursing, when these are the individuals that we are calling upon the most to help us through, and these are the frontline soldiers. So from a ministry standpoint, from a minister's standpoint, it is as best as possible to protect our frontline health team. It is to make them as comfortable as possible, and the new surroundings that we put in place with at the private block and also the new ICU, and to answer and to listen to all of their requests. I also want to thank the Public Workers Union for coming forward and working with us to make sure that because we're all in this together, that we work out any of the issues that may come up. And we have had to date quite a lot of success in that, in terms of the free flow of information, and also corporate sponsors, corporate citizens who have stepped forward. I think one of the better acts of appreciation was from Saul, that gave 50% off on the fuel for all medical staff. We also have seen many other corporate citizens offering from food to water. And what I would like to call upon the Grenadian public as a whole is to find opportunities to show appreciation to our doctors and nurses who are fighting this, and not only those who are on the front line of COVID, but as a result of so many of them being dedicated to dealing with COVID, the others that are dealing with our regular, normal health challenges are also stretched and are being called upon to provide human service. So I want to thank all the members of the public, and I'm looking forward to finding that mechanism, as was discussed today, to allow our doctors and nurses to find that appropriate time to quickly get their food, their necessities, their fuel as best as possible, and that we will continue to protect them. We brought up additional personal protection equipment here to Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and we'll be doing that. We constantly have equipment coming in and are sharing it also with our brothers and sisters in the Royal Grenada Police Force, and continuing to protect our frontline workers. And that, I think, is the first and foremost thing that we need to do. And also, after that, finding ways to show our appreciation as best as possible.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele. Nisha Paul, you're up next.
Thank you very much. A pleasant good afternoon to all. My question is for the Prime Minister. Have discussions been held directly with the suppliers to ensure that they do supply the village shops? Because some of the shopkeepers, especially those who are not located on the main road and in the St. David's area, have been saying that they have not been receiving supplies.
That the commissioner who were involved in dealing with the logistics of the decisions that we've made. I have not heard complaints from the community shops. Those that I have had contact with, I have not heard it. But I'm sure what you say, Nisha, might be very much accurate, and clearly that certainly would be addressed. Commissioner, any further explanation?
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, ma'am, for your question and the opportunity to give some reassurance to the shopkeepers there. Remember, this is a phased approach, and we started at a time when our level of infection was critical and there was mass level of uncertainty in our country. It's only now in hindsight, with the results we have and the stage that we are at, we can look back to see what else could have been done. But probably if we did not do what we did, we would not have been where we are now. So initially, in order to control and restrict movement, we had only 2 delivery days. We have now increased that to 3 delivery days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and with the clear intention to make sure that adequate time is being provided to our suppliers to go to the down trade and be able to service the smaller shops. We have also been cutting some concessions to suppliers outside of that time that is targeting delivery specifically to the down trade village shop, with a deliberate intention to make sure that they are adequately stocked. We have an interest in ensuring that that happens properly, because when it does, it would limit the number of persons intending to come out to the major supermarkets and mini-mart. So we will continue to improve on this. We are listening to the comments from the community and from members of the public, and we are trying to respond as best as we can, given our capacity and given how the science is indicating the limit to which we should open up. I hope that answers your question.
Nisha, do you have a second question?
Yes, I have another question. Can you speak to, I know it was mentioned that there is no community spread of the virus, but can you speak to which other communities that have been impacted by the virus and provide a status and updates on the persons who are in ICU?
Dr. George Mitchell, I think that one will be for you. I see Minister Steele has his hand up. Go ahead, Minister.
Yes, we have to remember that Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, we are a small country. And we do not have, while we would like to, we do not have the luxury to say one community over another. We commingle, we traverse our island, our tri-island, on a regular, sometimes daily basis under normal times. And as such, once there is one community, so to speak, then it is all of us that are a threat, and we must all take this seriously. So I do not think it is appropriate nor scientific to single out any parish or any community or any village in Grenada with respect to the threat level. The threat level remains equal for all. Just because of our size and the dynamics of our interaction as one people.
Nisha, for your patience, I will allow you that third question that you have requested. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. For persons who are giving aid to those marginalized by the systems that are in place, will concessions be made to allow them to give aid, especially across parish bounds?
Nisha, I think you are referring there to the various initiatives of persons to make their own private and personal donations to persons in need, yes?
Yes.
A difficult one.
The number you have...
we have made decision for a lot of concessions already. The taxpayers' coppers would be almost limited. I looked at the revenue of customs and inland revenue recently. Normally around this time coming to the 20th.
The number you have reached is not in service. This is a recording.
In revenue. So far, customs is about, I think it's about 5 million or 6 million, something like this, and inland is about less than that. So you could imagine the tremendous hit that the coppers are taking, and remember we have to make compensation. We promised to various workers around the country who are being lost their jobs or sat home because of the crisis. So the burden on the government is available.
The number you have reached is not in service. This is a recording.
Talking other additional concessions. I think people are recognizing this and they're making their own contribution in their own way. So I think That's where I want to leave it at this point, not knowing the specific issue involved, that I would not want to open it up and say concern.
The number you...
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I have a question here from
Recording.
Kenroy Batiste, and he's asking, should the COVID pandemic go beyond the 3-month deadline of the measures that government has announced? What is likely to be the government's next move? Can we say anything on that yet?
I think it would be based on what evolves in the period of time, because this thing is a very mobile activity in many respects. As we move further along, certain things become evident, and therefore certain decisions can be made. So I can't say that you'll have
The number you have reached is not in service. This is a recording.
So it's difficult to tell, but every aspect of initiative organization has to be looked at as we go forward in as far as the country's future relative to this virus is concerned.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I'll allow 2 more questions from the floor before we begin to wrap up here this afternoon. Junior, I see you've been waving for quite a while. Go right ahead.
Thanks again for the opportunity to ask a second part question. My question, I know the Prime Minister said that about the incentives. I have another incentive question, and this one has to do with the busmen. The buses are not running in the days when most people are permitted to tap. Will the government be interested or working towards giving incentive to those busmen, such as removing the 550 gallon on gasoline and diesel to assist persons to encourage the buses to run, since plenty of people depend on public transportation on those times?
Junior, we have announced that we're providing some financial support for the buses during this time that they are not working. So I think they know that government is already making direct cash contribution. The announcement on the amount for each bus will be made next week Friday, specifically what each bus will be getting. In addition, Junior, I think you're aware that the cost of gasoline has dropped and will drop even further dramatically, because the demand for oil has been reduced worldwide. So the price, as you know, of any serious service is based on demand, and the demand for oil has dropped so dramatically. Even some countries are agreeing to cut the OPEC countries by over 10 million barrels per day, and that still wouldn't drop the price to any excessive level. So I think busmen and drivers in general know that they're receiving tremendous reduction already. We also already promised the nation that we'll do something about the price of electricity for 3 months. While we have not finalized the complete sale of Grenlec, we have indicated that we have promised when that control comes, we will meet that commitment we made, and that the government will in fact find some mechanism to provide some relief before that engagement is finalized.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Dr. George Mitchell, there's a question actually that's come up a couple of times regarding the validity of the test that we have received based on reports that have been in the media. Can you speak to that and allay the concerns that are being expressed?
I guess that you were speaking to the rapid test. That is the antibody test.
It was not
all
specific.
of the antibody tests do have validity of a certain percentage. They are not 100%. This is why the confirmatory test throughout the world is the PCR. This particular test, rapid test that we have, has a fairly decent validity rate. That is at about 85%. So that is pretty decent. We have known other rapid tests that have less sensitivity, 65, 70. This particular one has a sensitivity of about 85%, so it is pretty decent.
Thank you very much, Dr. George Mitchell. Prime Minister, we have another question about the status of schools. Persons are keen to hear what is the latest position. Can you give an update?
That clearly is another of the serious issues that we have to deal with. One comfort we have is that the students in this time have not been completely marginalized because of the technology that we have invested heavily in. We have the platform now where teachers can in fact provide serious educational opportunities for their students while they're home, because we have the platform already established. What is necessary now is for us to move more to e-books, so they have the materials with them online, and what teachers can now teach them specifically while they're at home, and that a lot of that is taking place. So many of the teachers, while they may not be moving to the physical classroom, they are in fact, many of them are working probably in some case maybe harder than worked before, because they have to do a lot more preparation as they deal with helping their students. So that's an area where clearly education is fundamental to the needs of any society, and I'm sure you heard the argument already in New York and other places about closing school for a length of period. And we haven't completely come to that decision yet, but this is under active consideration, the question of the opening of schools at this time.
Thank you very much for that update, Prime Minister. Fellow journalists, reporters, we have been at it now for quite a while. I think it's time to put a wrap on things. I know some of you still have some outstanding questions. Many of them are operational, and those can be addressed during police press conference tomorrow. If not, myself, GIS, will continue trying to provide the answers as the questions come forth. But that will be all we have time for this afternoon. Prime Minister, would you like to make any final comments before we wrap up?
The final comment is really, again, to compliment the nation as a whole and compliment all our citizens for having to confront and deal with this, the understanding and patience that they have demonstrated. So, and to compliment all the key persons in the country who are providing enormous support, as we said, the police officers, the nurses, the doctors, and so on, and the staff at the hospital in general at all levels. The business community, they support whenever we get to them and say, look, we have a problem. They're willing to cooperate. The Bankers Association, we met with them. I called a meeting, I called it today for tomorrow. And they all were present and they were willing to move immediately. So throughout all sectors of the society, I must say that we have received enormous support. I just want to just finally say there was some report that I left the country, and was from supposed to be a responsible individual, another political organization, that I left the country. This Grenada is the safest place to be right now. So if people should be running to come here, I'm not going anywhere right now. So please, I'm here and I ain't moving.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Before you go, ordinarily we'll allow you the last word, but I'll give special provision to the Health Minister this afternoon, as he's on the sister isle of Carriacou, and he wanted to relay some final words to this session. Minister Steele?
Thank you, fellow and Prime Minister. With your permission, I have to thank my host here, Minister Maturin Stewart, who has graciously accepted us here to help to take us around, organize the various meetings that we had today and those for tomorrow. So I want to be the proper guest and to thank her, and also thank her for the constant communication that we've had, that allows us to adjust and accommodate as best as possible the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and also to help them to remain safe and sound. So thank you for that, and thank you, Philip.
Make sure she doesn't go, make sure as Minister of Health that she protects herself and not do too much. Make sure.
I will make sure that she respects the stay in shelter.
Okay, so that's a very light moment on which we end this afternoon's press briefing. I thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Commissioner, you're looking at me. I think you want to add something quickly before we wrap up. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Philomena. Greatly appreciated. My phone has also been blowing up with concerns, particularly from Carriacou and Grenada, as well as it relates to shopping days, banking, farmers, etc. The issue of banking days, shopping, and farmers, we will drill down on that tomorrow, 8:30, in our press conference here with GIS. But on the issue of gas, I want to say to our people on the sister isle of Carriacou and PD Martinique that effective tomorrow, you will be put on the same schedule as Grenada with gas Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between the hours of 6 a.m. and 12 noon. So that will happen tomorrow for essential workers, of course, and persons so cleared to receive gas. And on the shopping days, Carriacou, as Prime Minister indicated, your next shopping day will be on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, whereas in Grenada, we will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The details of this, how we will apply it, and how we will apply with crossing boundaries on banking, everything like that, we will drill down in that in more detail tomorrow morning at 8:30. Thank you, and continue to be safe.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and I want to thank the journalists present for this afternoon's press briefing for your absolute patience. I know we took a while to acknowledge some of you, but we have tried as far as possible to acknowledge all the questions that we have received. There are many outstanding ones, and as Commissioner just indicated, the police will hold their press brief tomorrow, so many more questions can be answered then. Thank you so much for joining us. Do continue to enjoy your Easter Monday. I'm Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Good evening.
Pure Grenada, the spice of the Caribbean, endeavors to be a positive source of inspiration for those dreaming of travel. We invite you to dream with us wherever you are. Dream about sipping a fresh fruity cocktail and sticking your toes into the warm white sand at Grandance Beach. Dream about snorkeling at the world's first underwater sculpture park at Molinaire. And dream about taking a dip under the cool, cascading Concord waterfall. We are Grenada, dreaming of welcoming you back to our shores. With love, from Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.